The child stared at me intently. Her mother urged her. "Go on, ask Uncle Graham." So, with a deep breath, she rushed out, "I've been told that dogs can't go to heaven as they've no souls. But will Finlay be in heaven?" I assured her that a late pet dog would indeed be in God's arms. But was the sentiment overtaking theology? I gave it a great thought later. It was then I realised that the Bible often refers to God's concern for the whole of creation and not just humans. And we see that, at least in today's lesson. Instead, it's our instinctive, if probably outmoded human-centeredness that brings on an amnesia, a forgetfulness of the fact that creation is God's gift to each of its constituents. More precisely, our world is an interrelated entirety, which is diminished, even risked, if one part is lost. And personally, the idea of a heaven without other living things seems to me no heaven at all. Yet when we think of the Noah story, we do tend to reduce it to ladybird book pictures many of us grew up on. It's all too easy to dismiss it as a fairy tale to be told over a wooden toy. Nevertheless, it does have far more within its narrative threads. It does have a message to us, who are the responsible adults of 2021. For the motif of the flood is a very good metaphor for any widespread global catastrophe. In essence, the idea of uncontrolled waters is a great way of expressing confusion and distress. Of course, today we are all too familiar with the obvious flood event of the pandemic. But underlying that is the more incipient flood, the situation of climate change. A flood, perhaps, that we will have to take one day literally. Similarly, the loss of species globally can be seen as a form of creation-wide pandemic. Perhaps then we all need to develop the godly foresight of Noah. Similarly, the image of the ark is useful. Now there are various interpretations of it. Naval architects will tell you that it would be impossible to construct. So too archaeologists will affirm there is no evidence of its existence. Lastly, theologians will theorize away its concept in a variety of suggestions. Yet in the end, the Noah story of an enormous undertaking enshrines the divine command that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. That in times of trouble the faithful are ever called to gigantic efforts. That for the people of God, even the most daunting challenge can be achieved provided we buy into it. Finally, we are left with the rainbow theme. Here we can understand its timeless message that particularly in periods of trial, God is with us, turning ugliness into beauty. That we best harness the power of humanity by using all its peoples across its wonderfully varied spectrum. That a faith in the risen Christ is the rainbow bridge, the bridge between heaven and earth, the energizing vision of the impossible becoming possible, and the power cord to make it happen. Apollo 8, the first manned mission to the moon, entered lunar orbit on Christmas Eve in 1968. That evening, the astronauts, Commander Frank Borman, Commander Module Pilot Jim Lovell, and Lunar Module Pilot William Anders, did a live television broadcast from lunar orbit, in which they showed pictures of the Earth and Moon seen from Apollo 8. Lovell said, "The vast loneliness is awe-inspiring and it makes you realise just what we have back there on Earth." Then the broadcast ended with the crew taking turns to read the book of Genesis. William Anders read, "For all the people of the earth, the crew of Apollo 8 has a message we would like to send to you. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved over the faces of the waters. And God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from darkness." Jim Lovell went on, "And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it be divided, waters from waters. And God made the firmament, and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which are above the firmament, and so on. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Frank Borman concluded, and God said, let the waters under the heavens be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good. Borman then added, and from the crew of Apollo 8, we close with good night, good luck, a Merry Christmas, and God bless you all of you on the good earth. Well, in this time of Lent, let us not struggle to further constrain our limited joys as if we were living in a tiny space capsule. Rather, let us use its voyage to see again the wonder of the whole of creation and God's valuing of it. Let us as well think through how we can be part of our world's solutions and are not another part of its problems. Above all, let us awaken that rainbow way of Jesus, and then walk across it to see how we can help heaven bridge over to the earth. For such meditations will inspire us to set our hand again to saving not just humans, but every living thing from our own excesses. It will goad us to honouring Genesis as much as ourselves. It will indeed invigorate us to build our imaginable ark, to fulfil God's rainbow promise, the promise that this still beautiful planet can be redeemed, that with our recommitment to creation we can bequeath it unsullied to those yet to come, generations who will look back from the darkness and in an astronaut's faith wish us blessing here, blessing on this forever good earth.